And welcome back into the Frank Beckmann Show, where we're happy to welcome back into the program Congresswoman Candace Miller, the lame duck Congresswoman from out in Macomb and St. Clair County. It's good to have you back on the show.
Hey, lame duck, quack, quack, huh?
Okay, so I'm ready to have you make that announcement for governor. Are you ready?
I'm not ready, but I thought there was an interesting poll the other day that came out that showed me running against better than our other candidates against all the Democrats. And I, as you know, haven't run a statewide campaign in 17 years. So nice to know that people still remember me as Secretary of State, I guess, in a lot of areas, and hopefully have sort of paid attention to my conservative voting record out here in Washington, trying to make a difference.
But what does that tell you that you show up so well in polling like that?
Oh, as I say, it's nice that people sort of hopefully have taken a look at my my public record, and I like to think that I've been a value add. Obviously, I don't do everything right; nobody does, but I always like to think about the people that I represent. And I'll just give you one quick example. Every year, I have an annual event called Dinner on the Farm. It's not a fundraiser, but it's put on by the Michigan Farm Bureau and the county farm bureaus in all my 6 counties that I represent. And we have like 500-600 farmers that show up, and I'll tell you what, these are folks that, first of all, they don't really want, it's not like they're standing there saying, what can you give me? Mostly they want to know, how can government leave me alone? But they're just such decent, people of faith, people of family, of community. And every time that I have that event and just get a chance to talk to them, it makes it a lot easier for me to get on the airplane and come out to Washington because, their expectation is that you do the right thing for them and for their family. And one guy said to me, he had his grandchildren, and it was like 3 generations. He said, Congresswoman, I want you to look at the faces of these people here. This is my family, my family. Mm-hmm. So when you're voting, you think about them. I said, yes, sir. And you do. So
you know what strikes me about that, though, Congresswoman Miller, is it sounds remarkable to hear that and refreshing to hear it, and it shouldn't be. That's how our government was meant to be.
Well, that's absolutely right. And, Frank, that's one of the reasons I'm leaving Congress, because I think the other thing our founding fathers had in mind was, you would have citizen activists from around the country, from wherever they were from, all different kinds of people. You come to Congress in Washington for some period of time, whatever that is, I don't know. But, for me, it's going to be 14 years. And then guess what? You go home. You go home. You don't make, they don't take you out on a gurney. You're supposed to. That's how you keep the government, the democracy strong, fresh ideas, new blood, experiences. I believe that. I do. I'm pretty sincere about it. So, honestly, I tell you, I don't mean to be vain, but I think I could probably stay here and get reelected for some period of time. I don't really think that's what the founding fathers had in mind, and that is responsible, I believe, for some of the gridlock that's out here. I do. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Well, when the object is only to get reelected, every time you are reelected, you're looking forward to the next campaign. That's wrong, and I think you are right. I think you could be there until the gurney came. But you don't want to be, But
and I'm a Michigan girl. I got to come home to Michigan.
You deftly moved the conversation away from that poll that shows you the leader in the governor's race, though. And I just wonder, does something like that impact you and your considerations of whether you will run?
I'm really, I know you're going to think, oh, that's such a political answer, but my real answer is one big decision in a life at a time. And my big decision was, I knew it was time for me not to run for re-election. People go, oh, you're retiring. Well, I don't think I'm retiring. It's just time for me to come home to Michigan and think about doing something else. And really, I do not know that it would be anything political. Quite frankly, I've been thinking about going back into the private sector. I came from the private sector. My family was in the marina business. And, I think that has helped me in my career, quite frankly. You come from a family business that actually has to make a payroll, and then you come here under the dome and all these ideas. Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I'm looking at some of these guys going, man, you have never made a payroll in your life. This is never going to work. So, who knows? I really don't know what I'm going to do. I honestly do not know. I'm sort of out there kicking the tires, and we'll see. Anyway,
What a decision, though. Do I run for governor or run a bait shop? You know. Now, listen. We originally called you though because we wanted to talk about the House passage of this legislation that would eliminate the federal Common Core requirements. And
Yes.
There's a good part of the audience, a lot of moms and dads out there who are going, "Thank goodness the federal government doesn't belong in education."
Well, I would say this, Frank. First of all, this whole No Child Left Behind, which really is what this bill replaced, I guess you could say, and a component of it was about the Common Core. I wasn't here when they did the No Child Left Behind. And, that was a major piece of legislation. George W. Bush talked about it. It was him and Ted Kennedy. It was bipartisan, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure it was good and, well-intended, but I'll tell you, since they've implemented it, there's been so many unintended consequences. And now on top of that, you've got the federal government coercing states into adopting Common Core. And I have to tell you, I'm probably in fact, I know I'm the only woman in my family who's got involved in politics. Most of the women in my family are public school teachers. And so I really have a very deep appreciation for what they do for their students. And I don't think we give our teachers enough credit for the tough jobs that they have. And I certainly don't think federal intervention, like what we've seen with No Child Left Behind or Common Core, makes their job any easier. And I'll tell you what, doesn't make our children any smarter, I don't think. So this bill really prohibits the federal government, particularly the Secretary of Education, as I say, from coercing the states into adopting Common Core. And we do that, of course, the federal government, typically, you have waivers, you've got federal grants, other authorities, those kinds of things. So it's, I think since it has passed, I've gotten certainly a lot of feedback. There are other parts of the bill, but this whole thing with the Common Core, really, I think that's what the 10th Amendment is all about, that you're protecting a state's right to decide what's best for its citizens, and in this case, our students. And I think we need to protect the right of states to create their own standards, and that's a big component of this bill.
All right, but there's a long way to go yet before Common Core could be sort of repealed under this legislation, and we'll cover that with Congresswoman Candace Miller next, right here on the Frank Beckmann Show. Right now, let's check traffic, and here's Mark Mitchell. We're talking with Congresswoman Candace Miller, who's been instrumental in getting this legislation passed to repeal Common Core. Now, the big question is, even though the House has passed it, if it gets to the president's desk, do you see any way he's going to sign it?
No. However, we have to have, it doesn't matter, because I shouldn't say it doesn't matter, but this president is all he does is talk about vetoing a lot of the good bills that are coming out of, I think they're good bills coming out of the House, and I think the Senate, is very interested in something similar to this, and will do that and go to conference, which again is the way the founding fathers thought you'd get legislation done, and then you have to make your case to the president, and if he vetoes it, let the people see. Let people see that, and I think people have to understand elections do have consequences. And regardless of that, I think this is a very good bill, because I'll tell you one thing, I have heard from so many teachers and school board members, et cetera, of some of the, not only Common Core, and first of all, it allows the states to completely opt out of Common Core without any financial penalty. But it really also allows the parents to opt their children out of, some of these testing requirements, if they want. And every child is not the same. Really. You're going to have one size fits all. Every child is not the same. Children have unique learning needs. And I've heard from a lot of my schools about what they call the AYP. That's the average yearly progress. Mm-hmm. So in this case, what we've been doing is you lump the entire student body together, and as a result of that, in my district and across the state of Michigan, across the whole country, you have schools that previously had won all kinds of accolades. I mean, these are blue ribbon schools. All of a sudden, they're failing schools. Seriously, how in the world did that happen overnight? Some of the things, we make our own problems sometimes, and I think we did here. So I just think that this bill that we call it the Student Success Act that we passed, it passed the House on Wednesday. So it removes a lot of these mandates that really, you're still keeping a lot of the critical funding in place, but removing these mandates, these federal testing mandates, and and a lot of the teacher evaluations and et cetera, et cetera. Let the states decide that. Really, I'm a 10th Amendment person, and I think this bill not perfect. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, it doesn't go far enough." Well, that may be true, but you got to get what you can get. Take the win, take the first down, and that's a big first down, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, final question, and it's kind of insider politics there in Washington, but John Boehner, the Speaker, has apparently been laying down the lumber on some of the far-right members of the Republican Party who opposed him on the trade bill, stripping them of committee assignments again, this sort of thing. What's going on within the party, and is it proper what he's doing?
It's not really him, really. I know everybody says, "Oh, he's a speaker." It's Boehner. Really, I'll tell you, there was a lot of uprising amongst the conference. Remember, we have many members of the Republican conference, not just the 30 or 35. That what they did that made a lot of us very upset, quite frankly, including me, is they voted against what's known as the rule. Now, this is a procedure thing. I don't question anybody's vote on any issue because you know what? That, again, is the beauty and the genius of the Founding Fathers. We all represent our district to the best of our ability, and you vote yay or nay on a bill depending on the people that you're representing. However, the rule is a procedural thing. And in our case, when you vote against the rule, you essentially are voting to allow Nancy Pelosi to control the Democrats, to control the floor. And we spent a lot of time and resources on trying to get a Republican majority so we could pass things like this act that I just talked about, eliminating, prohibiting this Common Core thing. Mm-hmm. And I understand if you want to vote against, you want to vote no on every piece of legislation that the Republicans bring up, even if you're a Republican, because it's not perfect in your mind or whatever. I got all that. Listen, I'm an old war horse here. But you have to be able to move an agenda. Let's say that you would like to have a piece of legislation. You're one of the so-called people that are, the whoever, whatever they are, and you want a piece of legislation. Everybody says, well, it's just not perfect, or we don't like this, so we're going to vote against the rule. Therefore, we just give it all over to Nancy Pelosi. I know this, as you say, it's insider baseball, but it's how legislation gets done. Not pretty, but that's the way it goes. So that is really what I think you had an uprising from the huge majority of Republicans who said, listen, I got it. You want to be over here and you always want to be against the establishment or whatever, but you can't have the entire Republicans here in the House. Well, we can't move an agenda and we're all going to be held hostage to this because you want, for instance, they said, we're going to vote against this rule unless you allow on this rule something about the XM Bank. Listen, this is the same group of people that say you can't have pieces of legislation that mix everything up. So, you want it when you want it, but then when it doesn't go your way, then you don't want it, Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, Frank.
I understand. So it wasn't just Boehner. It was a lot of members of the Republican Party
gosh.
who were mad at these guys and say right on, teach them a lesson. That's how it works sometimes, Hey, thanks for being with us again, and we'll look forward to wishing you a safe trip home for the weekend and that announcement that you're going to make on our show when you decide to run for governor, okay?
Have a good weekend, Frank.
I'll talk to you later. See you.
See you.
That's
Bye.
Congresswoman Candace Miller, who may run for governor or may run a bait shop. Who knows? Here on the Frank Beckmann Show.